Here we are on a really hot, not yet fishing season day, a month away before it begins, and we're already looking at temperatures of 25 sea air temperatures, and we're going to talk to two very professional gentlemen about their opinions on warm water piking. So, Ian, what have you got to say?
So, I think we probably need to do a bit more on the biology of the pike. I suppose it all comes down to that northern pike thing. They're called northern pike because they're found in the north part of the globe. What does that tell us? It tells us they're cold water fish. They prefer cooler waters. They're not a tropical fish. And most animals like the pike is beautifully adapted to its environment. It's beautifully adapted to that ambush predator aspect of life and the types of environment it's in. And those adaptations really come down to that cold water. Not really cold, but cold water. They're a cool water species, I suppose is the best way of putting it. And that adaptation is very important. We often look at fish, because they're cold-blooded, the water temperature is really important. All their metabolism works at that temperature range. And their temperature range is surprisingly good. It's, their upper lethal limit, for example, is 26, 27, something like that. But their optimum range, where they work at the comfortablest, is 16 to 20-ish, somewhere around that for an adult pike. Why do they have that when we don't? It's because they're cold-blooded. All their metabolism, all their enzymes, their digestive juices, everything is adapted to the temperature climate. And so we work with that upper lethal limit thing, which mentioned with carp, with pike. That's the bit that's important. And upper lethal limit means literally that at that temperature they will die. They won't die straight away. They will die over a period of time, usually because parasites and other diseases will get hold of them. And if we take that as a starting point, we're worried about how they behave as they get closer to that upper lethal limit. As they get closer, as they get sort of 18, 19, 20 degrees, which is relatively rare in this country. And under that point, they're starting to get stressed. Not only because they're becoming outside their perfect environmental zone, but also because of predisposing factors. So warmer water holds less oxygen, so there's less oxygen. So they're working harder to provide themselves with the oxygen they require. They have a much higher metabolic rate. One of the reasons we go fishing for pike in the summer is because they need more food. To them, they're easier to catch. But that higher metabolic rate, again, gives them a much greater need for oxygen. And there's less oxygen available. And finally, air temperature is important. If a cold-blooded animal in the water is in water, it stays at that same temperature. You take it out of the water, it's trying to warm up because the air temperature is almost always warmer than the water temperature. And I'm often asked at this point, is there any science behind what you're saying? And it's a bit of a bizarre question because of course there isn't. People aren't going out and saying, right, let's see how quickly a pike will die if we fight it hard at 21 degrees water temperature. It's entirely unethical. We already know what the answer is. It won't necessarily die straight away, but it will be heavily stressed. Take it out of that water and warm it up in the air, it becomes even more stressed. And that is one thing that some researchers have done, where they've shown that 90 seconds in air temperature that's 10 degrees warmer than the water temperature, so today would be a good example. In the local river, the water temperature is about 17, it's about 27 in the air temperature today, that's about 10. Take the fish out of the water, hold it for your photograph and to disgorge it and whatever else you have to do, and put it back. It's been shown that it'll take an additional hour for that fish to recover. So it's an additional time. And the other thing that's probably the most important to say is this is also cumulative. If you catch this pike at this water temperature, you are going to stress it. They fight hard, they're aggressive, they really give it all, they take a lot of energy out of themselves. We can show that that's stressful, we can show the air temperature when you take it stressful. You put it back, it's caught the next day. That cumulative addition really stresses the fish out, makes them much more prone to other things. And the other thing that anglers often say when we talk about this is, well, I put it back and it swam off, so it must be all right. You must understand with cold-blooded animals, they don't die easily, but they are stressed very easily and they will fall victim to other pressures in the environment, disease particularly. So you're making that fish much more prone to disease. That cumulative effect and that disease effect means it will swim off happily, but if you find it next day dead, that's not surprising. That's the thing. So those are the main things that I want to say. I probably ought to add at this point that this is probably the 4th time I've given a talk to pike anglers through various methods over the last 30 years, saying exactly the same thing. It's not a subject that really is open to debate. If you go fishing at these high water temperatures and high air temperatures and you catch a pike, you will kill some. That's it. It's as simple as that. You can't be happy with that. That's not what angling is about. That's it. I'll get off my high horse now.
You made a point there, Ian, about temperatures, and it's not that common in the UK to see those temperatures. What we do see in the Broad, because it's so shallow, is in fact we do see those temperatures all through the summer, from the start of the season right up to the start of the so-called October pike season. So the Broad's probably more than anywhere else in the country does suffer these extreme temperatures. So have you got a clear message from people that are pushing the boundaries on the 21C, 18C? They're fishing in temperatures approaching 23, 24 regularly, water temperatures, 23, 24 regularly in the Broads.
I go open and ice, you will kill fish. Absolutely, I can guarantee it. 23, 24, a pike is unlikely to survive more than 2 or 3 captures in a week. And anything more, there's a good chance you'll kill it on 1 capture. On 2 captures, there's a better chance than 3 captures, is almost certain. And I don't understand it. It's really quite straightforward. The 1821 is a good guidance. That's where you should be thinking about stopping. Anything over 21, stop. It's not rocket science. It's not really open to debate, to be honest. Not to me. You can try, but you will kill fish, and that's what you've got to accept if you do it.
Mr. Coulter, have you got anything to add to that?
I think Ian's absolutely hit the nail on the head, hasn't he? Why would you want to compromise a species that you're targeting, that you're supposedly an angler? And our mantra as anglers is we're caring for that environment and we're caring for those species, aren't we? If you're a pike angler, or a barbel angler, whatever you fish for, you should be caring for that fish and looking after it in its absolute. So it's absolute. It's at its optimum. And by going out and targeting them in these conditions at 21, north of 21 degrees, you're not doing that. You're putting that fish in a compromised position. And you might well put it back and think, oh, it swam away healthy. But as Ian said, it's that post-capture. We don't do a lot of research into fish post-capture because they're very difficult to find. You put them back and they're gone, aren't they? And then it's not until a day, 2 days later that we start to see the fish turning dead in the margins of the rivers, and that's we've got the angler's gone then. He thinks he's put it back and somebody else. Someone wakes back, wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
The other interesting thing, I think, not a lot of anglers pick up on, because we're all obsessed with dying or dead fish, is the papers that Hull University researched do point out quite clearly capturing those marginal temperatures over 18C does have an effect on the future of the pike's growth rates and their egg laying capabilities. If you've got anything to say about the damage that could be caused to the pike because of that, whether they don't, we all know they don't all die on those temperature ranges, but what we do seem to be able to prove is their egg laying capabilities and growth rates are affected. Have you got anything to say about that?
It's yes, that's quite a lot of research done on that, and it's true. And somewhere like the Broads, all the work I've ever done on the Broads is all about that population and how the population works. And so these we call them as scientists population level impact. So that individual survives, but is compromised, and it's compromised in a variety of different ways, which will make it less effective in producing young for the next generation, and the next generation, and the next generation. So you're not having an individual impact, you're having a population level impact, and that can be, in quite a lot of populations, worse. You're allowing an animal to survive, it will compete for resource and all the rest of it, but you've compromised its ability to lay eggs and produce offspring. So you're compromising the next generation, and particularly when you're targeting those big girls, the big powerful girls that the Broads is famous for, rightfully so. I've seen some beautiful pike on the Broads. We want them to spawn because they've got all the genes that bring them to that point of surviving, of thriving, of growing big and growing old. We want them to spawn. They're the ones that we as fishermen want to spawn, because they're going to give the best progeny for the next generation. So those population level effects can be worse than just death.
Because that's that point you said before about it being cumulative. It's a number of factors all on top of each other. You've caught the fish, you've compromised it there, you've compromised its ability to then go on and to breed. It's not as robust. It's using up resource that other fish could be using, and it's not in that optimal condition. So it's a cumulative effect. Just by catching it once or twice, you've compromised its ability to go and carry on with its life cycle to spawn.
There's an interesting thread that always seems to come just before the start of the pike season, when people have been pike fishing all summer, that people that lure fish, somehow they believe that they're not doing as much damage catching pike in those temperatures compared to dead baiting or live baiting. Have you got anything to say? I know it's very obvious to you two, why some people actually want to differentiate between a method, whereas the capture of the pike is the end result.
Right. I was going to say, is the argument down to the method of capture? Is there do they believe there's a less of a risk of deep hooking fish with a lure as opposed to a dead bait?
Yeah.
Is that the argument? When you're lure fishing, you're hooking the fish more lightly, for want of a better term, in and around the mouth. Yeah. It's easier. It's a reactive, isn't it? The fish has reacted to that lure. It's hit the lure hard. You've hooked it in the mouth. When it's hooked on a dead bait or a live bait, there's more of it's a thought process. It's a necessity. It's taken. It's probably hit it quite hard and it's gone further back in the throat, and it takes longer to disgorge it and then to do that safely. It's not really an argument. You still pulled the fish are still pulled back, it's still pulled back hard, it's still got to go back into them suboptimal conditions. You've still got that high cortisol stress response within the fish's body that it's got to mediate somehow.
It's a bit of a fuzzy logic one as well.
Yeah, well, I caught it that way, so that's different. It's better than you catching it that.
That one's worse than this, or this one's all right. No, the most of the impact is on, well, the impact that we would measure would be on the fight, the retention was taking pictures, that sort of thing, and taking the hooks out. That's the impact. There is obviously a much worse impact from a deep hooked pike, but that's always the case. That doesn't matter whether it's cold or hot or anybody else. It's a bad thing to do to a pike. We all see pike with damaged gills.
And also from that point about the deep hooking and having to remove those hooks. You've got to retain the pike, you've got to restrict the pike, you've got to get the forceps in, and you've got to physically remove it from the water. And it's, as Ian was saying earlier, it's that you're extending the amount of time that fish is out of the water, is in atmospheric air, is being warmed up. it's stressed, you've got to remove it, you might damage the gills, and then you're putting it back. And that damaged gills then, again, it compromises its ability to get back to its normal condition.
The other thing with social media, unfortunately, everyone's got to take a picture. And what we're seeing
absolutely.
more and more.
If you haven't got a picture, it didn't
Doesn't
exist.
count.
Yeah, and what we're seeing nationwide is more and more people keeping these pike out for longer and longer. So we've not only got the problem of the capture and the stress involved, but air exposure on the bank.
Yeah.
It's a sure way to add in the shortening of the lifespan of the pike, especially in the summer, or am I wrong?
No, absolutely. Air exposure is a terrible thing for a fish. You really don't like it. One, because it warms up, but longer air exposure, particularly in sunlight, and you see it being held in dead sunlight on today, you wouldn't need to hold a pike in the sun for very long for it to dry out the skin. And the skin is incredibly important to a fish. It's not just like our skin, a hard surface that will go brown in the sun. It's a moist surface with a very active anti-parasite layer on it. The mucus of a fish is anti-parasitic, it's antiviral, it's antibacterial. It's a fantastic adaptation to life in the water, full of all sorts of things that want to attack you. And drying it out and destroying it, and you do destroy it. It will be replaced, but it takes time for it to replace it, and it's very energy inefficient for the pike. So just holding it in the sunshine is a terrible thing to do to a fish. It really does dry that skin out.
Going back to the 1821 recommendation, I know you can't really comment too much on the science of that, apart from what Professor Ian Cox has really written and peer reviewed stuff. But what we've seen is a lot of people fishing right onto the peripheries of 21. It's become this thing, nearly a mantra, that I'm always at 20, but as soon as I get to 21, it's not so great. Have you got any advice for people that are pushing those limits?
I suppose it probably goes back to the original, the sort of idea that why, and that's the upper limit, really. And even then, there are lots too different. It's a bit difficult to answer, but if you're an angler who cares for the pike, why are you pushing it to the limit of the thing? And if it's a bright sunny day like today, then it's obviously bad. You know, it will be bad at 18. To be honest, the weather out there, it's 27 air degrees air temperature. The water temperature is probably 16 in where you catch pike. We're on the Great Ouse today, and the River Great Ouse has a fantastic head of pike in it. I wouldn't fish on a day like today. Mainly because it was 12 degrees in the water last week, and next week it'll go back down to 12. And they hate change, they hate these bouncing water temperatures in the spring. And so you're compromising them for no better reason than I want to catch fish. And that's never going to be a good enough reason.
Is there not it isn't a challenge. It's not, it says 18 to 20, oh, I'm not 20. I keep my thermometer in the margin, and when it gets to 21, then I'm going to wind the gear. That's not what guidance is it? It's well, it says 20, but as Ian just said, you've got all these other factors to play. It's not just water temperatures. When you catch that fish at 20.5 degrees, and you bring it on the bank, all of those factors then come into play. Just because the water temperature was 21, it isn't 21, sorry, it's 20 point and a bit. The other bits are still even more important because it's at that limit. And if you care for those animals, you care for those fish, and you call yourself a pike angler, you shouldn't be going, yeah, but it's 20. It's all right, it's 20. Do something else.
The thing is, we see in the Broads a lot, obviously at those temperatures. What people tend to forget, especially if they're on holiday and it's fun, they'll catch a pike at 19 to 20 C, that come out on a Monday, a different angler will be catching that fish the next day, and that fish is pre-exhausted. This happens a lot in popular areas, as in the Broad, so that's why we see so many fatalities. So, I do worry that people do latch on to, I'm safe up to 21.
It's the oddity of this whole discussion is you see fatalities on the Broads. Yeah? Frequently, in the summer, when there's water temperatures. I presume the fish are relatively unharmed, they're just dead. Almost certainly angling.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to prove it, but it's almost certainly hanging what other pressures are out there.
Yeah.
So we're discussing this like it's an open debate that people can have, that we can say, oh, you know, maybe we could raise it to 23, or you're killing fish.
Yeah.
As pike anglers, you're killing fish for no better reason than you're on holiday and it happens to be a hot week. And that really is pretty unforgivable. And the guidance can never be more than guidance. You have no power over these people, you have no control over what they do. You can't go and slap them around because they're fishing at over 21 degrees. But people stop it. Really, honestly, it's a. What does the average person think when they're on holiday on the Broads and a £15 pike floats past them, and they know that was caused by angling?
That's a really good
What are
point.
they going to say?
Yeah.
What are they going to think? Actually, it's not worth it. Angling's nice, but maybe it's not worth it. Maybe we should just, because they're not going to say, well, let's ban angling over 21 degrees. They're going to say, let's ban angling.
That's a really valuable and important point, isn't it? Where we make up a percentage, and maybe a large percentage of holiday makers on the Broads, but we aren't just, there are lots and millions of other people visiting the Broads over the summer for holidays. And they say that they're walking there on the bank with the children and they're walking the dog, and they've got no interest in angling, but they see a dead pike and they walk 10 yards up or 20 yards up the bank and there's a pike angler, or there's somebody fishing there. It doesn't take them long to put two and two together, and it paints us in that quite a bad light. You know?
Certainly for us, as a local, holiday makers are part of the problem, but sadly for us, we have to admit that there's lots and lots of local anglers who are doing the same. So I don't want anyone to think that we're castigating holiday makers too much, but they are part of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's, and we're not really, I would think, castigating 80% of pike anglers. Sorry, I'll get it right. Pike angler. Because most people are responsible. Most people, they'll pack their pike rods away this time of year, and they'll not pick them up till October. There's always a small minority, and how do you? We always have this problem, and that's why it confuses me that I'm still giving the same sort of speech 30 years on. Is how do you talk to these people? Because again, you know, you don't want to take them and slap them around. It's what do we need to do to convince you that you can't pike fish over sort of 20 degrees C? Put your rods up, go and fish for something else, go and do something else.
And that's the beauty of the Broads, isn't it? There is everything else.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it's not as if
you're not at a loss for things to catch.
You're not thinking, oh, crack, if I can't fish a pike, what else can I fish for?
Yeah.
There is everything else to go for. And yeah, fish up to 17, 18 degrees, and then be sensible and think, right, this is that point where I've got to have the best interest of the pike at heart and go and fish for something else, or as Ian said, wait for the better conditions. We can go back to 2022 and we had that really long hot summer, didn't we? But then 2023, it was wet and cold and pretty dry. And then, but this year started off very in a similar vein to 22. So plan for that and think about, right, well, I'll go and fish for something else on the Broads.
Well, this is the whole point of this process and this little filming that we're doing, that two people with your knowledge hopefully will get through to the minority that are still arguing that the science is rubbish and it's not correct. Obviously a lot of well-known anglers have said the same thing, but we're not fishery scientists, but experience tells us that we're in the right. Hopefully people like you two.
Well, you literally see the results of it, so you know it's.
So thank you both for pulling some time out of your day, on a busy scheduled day. We really appreciate your effort. Thanks very much.
No worries, thank you.